Oh, good morning. You're watching Rebel Roundup, Rebel News' daily news and opinion show. I'm your host, Sheila Gunn Reid. Normally, I have a co-host on, well, most every day, unless somebody else is busy. Normally on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it's my real life best friend from Regina, Saskatchewan, Lise Merle. But her Starlink Mini is giving her problems as she's out on the road today. So I think it's just going to be me today, unless she sorts that out and then jumps in at some point in the show. So bear with me as I'm flying alone. I find it much easier to talk to somebody else about the issues of the day rather than just myself. And then you guys get to be the voyeurs as I do that. But that's what we're going to do today because the show must go on. We're already 10 minutes late and I have a hard out at the top of the hour. So if you are watching us on YouTube, that remains a censorship platform. There are some things that we cannot say over there, just so you know. But if you want to support our work over there and get involved in the show, and please, 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 friends, get involved in the show. Help me kill some time by leaving a super chat. If your super chat is more than $5 US, it's obligatory that I read it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best, time permitting. I feel like I'm going to have the time today. If you are watching us on Rumble, that's an excellent free speech platform that doesn't care about your politics. Same rules apply over there with their paid chats. However, their paid chats are called Rumble Rants. Also, if you miss a live version of the show and you want to leave a paid comment over on YouTube, you can do that by way of a super thanks. That's their paid comment over there. And we ask you for this, or we invite you to do this, I should say, because we don't take any money from the government, and I think it shows, don't you? Okay, let's get into the news of the day. I don't know if the rest of the country is paying attention to such things. However, it's a big deal out here on the prairies. It's Calgary Stampede, the greatest outdoor show on earth, although I think Pinoca Stampede gives them a run for their money. That's just my personal bias. It's a little less commercial, a little less bar starry, but it is a huge economic boom to the city of Calgary. Enormous. Because it's not just a rodeo, it's not just a tourist event. There's a lot of shopping done. The hotels are full. You know, there's the trade show that goes along with it. Equipment is bought, you know, horse trailers, all that kinds of stuff. It happens during Stampede Week. The bars are full. And there's concerts. Country Thunder was also supposed to happen, but thanks to a change in the decibel value for these things at the hands of the mayor, Country Thunder pulled out, which is crazy. I had tickets to see Lainey Wilson, you guys. Anyway, now, according to CTV Calgary, there are noise complaints for the Stampede music festivals because of course there are. So this from CTV News. The city of Calgary says the first 4 days of the Calgary Stampede have yielded dozens of noise complaints, with an increased number of complaints connected to two of the event's biggest music festivals. A Monday news release said the city has received 70 noise complaints. It's probably 5 people making the same phone calls for Stampede-related events across the city from July 2nd to July 5th. 40 of those noise complaints concern Cowboys Music Festival, which I attended last year, which was great, while 15 were connected to the Badlands Music Festival. Other noise complaints included 15 calls for the National Saloon, 5 for Whiskey Rose, and 1 for MexiFest. City data shows the number of noise complaints related to the Cowboys and Badlands music festivals over the first 4 days of the Stampede has increased from last year, with complaints increasing by 1 and 9 calls respectively. So actually, this is just normal. So they got an extra 1 phone call and 9 phone calls respectively year over year. So that should have been in like the sub headline of this article. You see, they're telling you that, oh, they got 70 noise complaints. That's outrageous. But when you look, this is just standard. And 70 noise complaints in a city of well over 1 million or 1.5 million people. Who cares? It's for like a week, 10 days of the year. Stop it. Just stop. anyways. And I think some of this is invited by the mayor, right? The mayor made noise an issue. So now everybody else is making noise an issue. And actually, as it appears by the numbers, not so much. One extra complaint this year. Who cares? Who cares? This story from CTV Ottawa. Ottawa Public School Board will not participate in Capital Pride in August. Why do you guys think that is? Do you guys know? Ezra knows. And they're not going to tell you. So I'm just going to bump into this. They're not actually telling you in this article what the cause of this is. And the cause of this is our new cultural mosaic of a country. So if we drill down on this story, yeah, Ezra gives it away there. During the month of June, Ottawa Carleton District School Board recognizes Pride Month in our schools. Pride Month is about education. Is it really? Celebrating diversity and fostering inclusive spaces that prevent bullying, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. Is biphobia actually a thing? So that all students and staff feel valued and that they belong. Oh, God, I don't even want to think about who the staff are romantically involved with. Do you remember when you were a kid? If you saw your teacher out in the world, you were sort of unsettled that they actually had a life outside of the school, right? Now we're supposed to care who, not just be aware of, but deeply care, be emotionally attached to who the staff and teachers are sleeping with. Doesn't it seem weird to you guys? Take me back to the good old days. So the first day of classes for Ottawa Carleton District School Board's elementary and secondary students is Tuesday, September 1st, blah, 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 blah. But they've sort of canceled their involvement in Pride in Ottawa, the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Now, this is a good thing, obviously. But as Ezra shows us exactly why. CTV doesn't tell us because, as Ezra says, CTV is too politically correct to explain what's really going on here. Islam is now the #1 religion in Ottawa public schools at 25%, ahead of Christianity. That's why there's no Pride Parade. And a lot of other changes will come soon too. And then he links us to the source. So the wokesters who have invited out of control immigration are about to get, if not are already being mugged by reality. So, and this started happening a few years ago. I forget what city it was in. It was one of the Laurentian Triangle, the Laurentian Bermuda Triangle, where good sense and common decency goes to disappear. But look at this. If you look, 1/4 of Ottawa Carleton District schools are Muslim students, and Christians are at 23%. And then, of course, no religious or spiritual affiliation, 29%. That's why Pride is being canceled. But I remember a few years ago, before I got off track there, I forgot what city it was in. Maybe somebody in the comments can remind me. The weekly pro-Hamas march encountered a Pride Parade on a street corner. They sort of came upon each other, and there was like a standoff there. And I thought, this is where the left is heading. Their bad ideas are meeting each other on a street corner, and it's going to meet in other places around the country. You can't just be for unfettered immigration from all of the less progressive parts of the world and then think that your country is going to stay a certain way. And for the woke weirdos at Ottawa Carleton District School Board who seem to think that talking about other people's sex lives with other people's children is a good idea, they're finding out it's not. And I don't know how we roll this back. Like, I don't know. I'm happy. On one side, I'm happy that the children will not be exposed to this. Like, don't talk to kids about this, you absolute weirdos. But the reason why is not a good reason at all. All right. We've got a couple of things here. This from the Globe and Mail. Carney made some Senate appointments today. Carney to appoint senior Liberal strategist to the Senate, so he's starting to stack the Senate. Tom Pitfield has served as principal secretary to Mr. Carney since he became prime minister last year and also played a central role in his government's AI strategy. What could possibly go wrong there? The announcement of his appointment, as well as others, is expected on Tuesday. There are currently 10 vacancies in the 105-member Senate, one each in Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and 5 in Quebec. Why so many in Quebec? Because they get a lot of Senate seats, because they're more important than the rest of us. So Pitfield's from Montreal, and he'll be likely appointed to fill a Quebec vacancy. The reason we don't have any Alberta vacancies is Mark Carney appointed Chris Wells, who is a radical gender activist academic from Edmonton, who looks and sounds exactly the way you think he does. And he is like a vicious anti-conservative, anti-Alberta extremist. And that was done over the choices of Albertans. You see, because there's no such thing as constitutional reform in this country to correct the inequities in Confederation, Alberta has been doing a long-standing practice of selecting our own senators. We put it on the ballot, the people vote, we choose them. And then it has been practice that the prime minister respect our choices and appoint the people we have elected. So we don't have to rip open the Constitution by saying, okay, we're going to completely elect the Senate. We are showing them who we'd like through an election, and then the prime minister chooses that person out of respect for the will of Albertans. But Justin Trudeau didn't do that. Before he selected Christopher Wells, he selected Paula Simons, an absolute crazy person who still wears a mask, by the way. She's a former journalist for the Edmonton Journal who seems to be pretty okay with censorship, if you can imagine that. And yeah, she still wears a mask. She bragged about not getting her hair cut during COVID, and doesn't look like she's seen a hairdresser all that regularly either. And I'm not one to talk, right? Like I'm disheveled on a good day, but I have my reasons. I'm not in the Senate. So she was selected. Chris Wells was selected. And I think we currently have 2 senators in waiting. Mike Shake and Erica Barutz, I think, is also one. They were selected by the people of Alberta. But this is Mark Carney stacking the Senate with his friends. And there's another sneaky little thing that Mark Carney did earlier today. Maybe you can dig it up for me, Olivia. And that's the other senator. We just had another Conservative cross the floor in Quebec. Can you dig that up, Olivia? I think Ezra put it in the Slack somewhere. Anyway, while we're sorting that out, yes, we had another Conservative cross the floor and the building. So Mark Carney, in continuing to stack the Senate, but also show the Conservatives that he can buy off any number of their MPs, took a Conservative MP from Quebec and appointed him to the Liberal Senate chamber, thus vacating that seat in Quebec for the Conservatives. So taking another MP from the Conservatives, and that will go to by-election. And the by-election was very close. I think it was 31%, or the last election result was very close for the Liberals. And the Conservatives and the Bloc, for that matter. I got to dig that up. I know I put you on the spot, Olivia, but it was, I think, 33 or 34 for the Conservative, percentage-wise, 31 for the Liberals, and 31 for the Bloc. So I think the Liberals think that they can win that by-election too. So they took this Conservative MP whose name currently escapes me. Actually, I think it's in my email. Sorry, I'm ill-prepared for this because I've gone off topic a little bit with the Senate appointments. But let me look here. No, I don't have it in my email. Richard Martel, that's his name. Richard Martel is a Conservative MP from Quebec, and he's just been appointed to the Liberal Senate chamber. There's nothing that these Liberals won't do. Like, this is not just having him cross the floor, but this also secures the Liberal power in the Senate and also gives the Liberals potentially another seat in the House of Commons. So he's the MP for Chicoutimi-Lafjord since 2018, and he'll fill a Conservative, or he'll fill a Senate vacancy in Quebec. He'll likely join the Independent Senators Caucus, which is just the second Liberal Senators Caucus. So yeah, in the 2020, this is relevant. In the 2025 election, his riding was nearly a three-way split with Martel securing. How's that for memory? 34% of the vote with the Liberals in the bloc, each winning 31%. So that's 4 Conservatives crossing the floor. He makes 5. He crosses the floor and then goes to a different building. And the Liberals are hoping that they can win that Quebec riding too. Gross. They just beg, steal, and borrow away to power because their only ideology is power. That's it. They don't care about anything else. Mark Carney has landed in Ankara for the 2026 NATO summit. For the first time since the fall of the Berlin Wall, Canada has met 2%, this is according to Mark Carney, 2% target for NATO spending. We're building on that foundation fast to defend ourselves, secure our sovereignty, and support our allies. But we know that a lot of that spending, several billion of that spending, is to greenify the military. So it's not on like procurement, not necessarily. It's not on staffing up. It's not necessarily all that much on pay either, or deployment readiness. We've seen how deployment ready we are. They're sharing sleeping bags and rucksacks, and friends and family are sending helmets and MREs to our soldiers deployed in Latvia. So anyway, let's go to this clip of Mark Carney from Kirk Lubimov. It's about a 55-second clip. And if you think I'm crazy when I say that they're spending billions and billions of dollars to greenify the military, and then they're saying that's increased military spending, he's hinting at it here.
The assumptions that had shaped decades of Canadian defense and foreign policy have been upended. Put another way, history is back with a vengeance. We face numerous and growing threats, from incursions in our Arctic to attacks in our cyberspace. The world's changed, Canada must change with it. Nowhere is that more evident than on our seas and in our Arctic. Our Arctic is becoming integral to the security of North America and to the security of NATO's western flank. More menacingly, authoritarian regimes are increasingly assertive. The burdens within our traditional alliances are shifting, and middle powers such as Canada are seeking greater strategic autonomy through partnerships amongst the like-minded. We must meet both the realities of a changing climate and that new geopolitical landscape. The assumptions that had shaped...
So I don't know if he's talking about a changing climate as in climate change or changing political climate, but I feel like he would have clarified if he meant changing political climate. And that's because I know that they're spending billions of dollars to green up the military, while parents are sending MREs to their sons who are deployed in Latvia. Well, I'll just hit one more story before we hit an ad break. This one, like authoritarian herpes, he's back. Davos co-founder Klaus Schwab plots a return to the World Economic Forum. And this was after he was Me Too'd a little bit. Schwab claims an investigation. This is him claiming the investigation. And who did the investigation? His friends. Schwab claims an investigation cleared him of wrongdoing. Internal documents show the forum kept findings of its probe hidden. So we're just supposed to take his word for it and let him come back to head up the cabal of the world's oligarchs who seek to control every aspect of your life. This guy really wants us to eat the bugs and own nothing and be happy. Klaus Schwab is trying to make a comeback at the World Economic Forum. The 88-year-old founder recently sent letters to board members with a list of demands, legal threats, and seeking an advisory role that would give him a say in appointing the forum's future leadership, according to documents viewed by the Wall Street Journal. Schwab resigned as chair of the forum last year after a public clash with the board for opening an investigation into a whistleblower's allegations of misconduct. Wall Street Journal investigation in 2024 uncovered evidence of a toxic culture at the World Economic Forum for women and Black employees. Schwab denied any wrongdoing. Of course he did. Schwab's justification is anchored in part on the forum saying last year that it found no, quote, material wrongdoing. Now, that doesn't mean no wrongdoing. It just means no material to the investigation. In a public statement after the investigation into the complaints of unauthorized spending and inappropriate treatment of female staffers. Who's surprised? Not Sheila. Schwab's justification is, oh, sorry, I went through that. The documents viewed by the journal showed that the August 2025 statement was at odds with findings that were privately shared with the board by lawyers conducting the probe. So they told everybody that there was no material evidence or evidence of material wrongdoing, but the documents of the investigation that the Wall Street Journal saw showed something different. So those and the board members know that. And so that's why Schwab is now threatening them legally. Those included instances of discrimination and bullying, misuse of corporate funds, and breaches of data integrity. Schwab also asked that some of those significant findings wouldn't be made public, a decision that some board members didn't agree with, according to people familiar with the discussions. You know, it's so weird that these rich, elitist, crazy people don't think the rules of common decency and protocol apply to them. It's almost like they just want to be in control of us and do whatever they feel like. Before the August 2025 statement, the journal reported that the preliminary findings in the investigation found misconduct over the span of a decade, including improper travel, expenses, and gifts. The findings also included bullying and inappropriate behavior. Now Schwab is seeking to regain access to forum premises and communication channels, as well as farewell visits for him and his wife, Hilde Schwab, to the forum's overseas locations, according to the documents. He's also asking the forum to reinstate personal security for him and cover at least half of his personal legal costs related to the dispute. The board, which is now co-chaired by, of course, another sinister, crazy man, a BlackRock chief executive Larry Fink and Roche's vice chairman Andre Hoffman, is slated to meet in mid-August. They took over on an interim basis in August 2025 when the board's interim chairman, Peter Babarek-Letmat, and former CEO of Nestle resigned. Don't get me started on the evil of Nestle. Absolute evil company. It's everywhere. Its influence in what constitutes nutrition has led to serious health outcomes for the last 2 generations of the Western world. And that doesn't even take into account the whole water issue with Nestle. But even he resigned, or he raised concerns about a toxic work environment. So anyway, he's going to take control of it again. I know he is. Not that it'll make any difference. They're there to draft policy proposals adopted by progressive governments around the world to control your life, to control what you eat, how you live, how you drive, how you think to make you nutritionally deficit or deficient so that you can't think your way or fight your way out of a problem, to make sure that you don't have the economic means or the fossil fuel access to flee any of their bad ideas. Anyways, you'll eat the bugs, you'll own nothing, but I can't guarantee that you'll find happiness in any of it. Let's take an ad break and let's come back on the other side, please.
For generations, many Canadians have preserved more than just firearms.
Many of our men and women
They've
clad in
preserved
uniform.
history, tradition, competition, memories. But under Trudeau, and now Carney, heirlooms, estates, collectibles, and competition firearms now have to be surrendered and destroyed. While violent gun criminals get pass after pass, openly ignoring any legislation, lawful gun owners are trapped in an increasingly unfair legal system. But we can help. Canada's National Firearms Association's Save Firearms program offers the legal pathway to preserve what matters, while we work towards a political solution. Don't let yours be next. Save history. Save heritage. Save firearms. Visit nfa.ca today to learn more.
In Canada, firearms owners like me understand the importance of safe, effective self-defense options. That's why we're proud to have Byrna as a sponsor. Byrna's less lethal launchers are designed to help protect you and your family without taking a life. Byrna offers peace of mind, accessibility, and a practical layer of personal security for Canadians who value safety. Learn more at byrna.ca/rebel. That's byrna.ca/rebel.
Canada's been told to just quit smoking for decades, same message over and over, and yet millions of Canadians still smoke. So let's ask a follow-up question. For those who don't quit, what about change? In 2026, Canada has options that didn't exist years ago. Smoke-free alternatives for adults who would otherwise continue smoking. That doesn't mean risk-free, it means informed choice. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. But for those who don't quit, change could still be part of the conversation. That's why Canadians should check out unsmoke.ca, an information resource focused on smoke-free alternatives and honest facts, not judgment. Put the lighter down, Canada. Learn what your options are.
You know, I like that little sting that reminds me that we're coming back on air instead of just going out after the ad break, because sometimes it catches me a little off guard and unawares. Olivia, let's keep doing that. So I think I got to all the headliners. Lise, her Starlink continues to crash every 15 seconds, but she advises me that wherever she is, CBC's Bow Valley has great Wi-Fi. She can see it on her phone, but she can't sign into it. She's off gallivanting with her children today on vacation, but not one to miss work. She's probably very disappointed that she is. Let's hit a couple of stories that are not on our list of things, but I did hit the headliners. I want to talk about something that Lise and I always talk about on the show. Anytime there's a government announcement, it's how does Brookfield connect to this? And everybody thought there's got to be a way that Brookfield connects to that condo bailout that actually doesn't actually fix the housing problem. If there's a glut of unsold condos on the market, the developer should take the hit. That's the whole point. You take a risk, a financial risk in business. You either reap the reward or you take the hit. You know, that's what happens. You pony up the cash, you reap the reward, it's yours. You take the hit, it's also yours. You can't just be assured profits. That's not how it works. So the Liberal government announces this massive condo bailout, which doesn't fix the problem, because if those unsold condos in British Columbia are sold for a reduced rate, guess what it does? It fixes the inflated housing prices across the board, right? It brings down the market price. Your house has to be priced comparatively to other similar houses on the market. And if the similar houses on the market are being sold for less, the house you're trying to buy will come down in cost too. It's the whole idea of supply and demand. You have an oversupply and under demand, the price drops. Great. You have an undersupply and an over demand, the price goes up. This would have corrected itself in the marketplace if the government just stayed out of it. But as Ronald Reagan once said, you know, the scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And along comes Mark Carney with a bunch of our money. So actually, if you're buying a house in British Columbia, you're competing with your own money. So gives billions of dollars to already wealthy condo developers to protect the market price of their condos. And then this comes out. Because you just knew that Brookfield was benefiting from this, and not just the condo king whose name escapes me right now, who lobbied the government in the days before this announcement. Actually, 30 condo developers, as I was watching before I came on air. I was watching the committee hearing. I was trying to clip some of it, and I'll get around to that after I'm done. But 30 very wealthy condo developers lobbied the Prime Minister's office directly in the days before this announcement. And as it turns out, Mr. Must Have Seen a Blind Trust, Mark Carney, former head of Brookfield and still, you know, mega Brookfield shareholder, will benefit from this. Conservatives say Brookfield partnered with Vancouver condo developer 15 days before Carney's bailout. And now they're going to call Brookfield as a witness to the ethics committee. So you just knew. And actually they made reference to one that sort of slipped our attention. Another Brookfield scandal that really didn't get much play in the news when it happened, but it was about aircraft in, I think, Montreal, Quebec anyway. And the government gave a bunch of money to an aircraft manufacturer, which was linked to Brookfield. Of course. Like, everything is, how does Brookfield get rich? You know, we talked about it last week on the show. Mark Carney was saying that the way forward is electrification, but what they don't mean is like coal or even natural gas for that matter. They mean small nuclear reactors. Guess who owns Westinghouse, which is the major manufacturer of small nuclear reactors in this country? Brookfield. It's always Brookfield. I don't know why we're called Canada anymore. We're the United States of Brookfield. This is crazy. But anyways, more will come out, and I can't wait for the ethics committee meeting that has Brookfield in attendance, where the Conservatives are going to absolutely drop bombs on the laps of the government. Now, will anybody care? Will the boomers in Toronto switch their votes because of this? Remains to be seen, doesn't it? All right. Let's go back to another story that we talked about the other day. Actually, on this topic, we've got Aaron Gunn, before we move on to the next topic, on the Brookfield issue and the ethics committee with the condo bailout. Conservative MP Aaron Gunn, no relation, although I wish we were, calls for an urgent committee study into Prime Minister Mark Carney's plan to buy 2,200 unsold BC condos. And I watched this live as it happens. Look at the games the Liberals are playing here. You can only call a point of order in a committee if you think that there is something procedurally wrong happening before you. But that's not what they're doing here, because they know the Conservatives have figured out the link to Brookfield here, and they don't want it to get on the record. So watch this.
Start at the top again. I'd like to move this motion that given that Prime Minister Mark Carney recently announced a plan to bail out developers, bankers, and investors by using taxpayer dollars to purchase more than 2,200 unsold condominium units in British Columbia, this bailout will not make housing more affordable, but will prevent a price correction from taking place, preserving high prices for developers rather than lowering them for British Columbians trying to enter the housing market. C, questions remain about which ministers were lobbied and by whom in the lead up to this announcement. D, questions remain about which developers and lenders will benefit from this bailout, which condo units will be eligible, how prices will be determined, which financing tools will be used, and which entity or entities will ultimately own the units. E, forcing home buyers to compete with their own tax dollars while raising housing prices for the benefit of developers is not in the interest of Canadians. And F, Prime Minister Mark Carney is building an economy of bailouts and handouts to Liberal insiders while creating higher costs, debt, and taxes for everyone else.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Chagger.
I don't know about anybody else, but my translation's not working.
Okay, we'll make sure that your audio is working. Is the audio working? Okay, I know what you're doing here. I know what you're doing to disrupt the meeting, and that's fine. You can continue it because people are watching. Go ahead, Mr. Gunn. Start with the next paragraph. Get your motion on notice. Put it on the floor, and then we'll continue with debate after that. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. And just to repeat the last sentence, F, Prime Minister Mark Carney is building an economy of bailouts and handouts to Liberal insiders while creating higher costs, debt, and taxes for everyone else. The committee, during the summer adjournment, undertake an urgent study into the Canada-British Columbia partnership on condo conversion, and no fewer than 6 meetings be dedicated to this investigation. And for the purpose of this study,
so he goes on to list the witnesses that he wants called. He wants Gregor Robertson, the housing minister, the BC housing minister, people who represent the interests of homeowners in affordable housing. And then Bob Rennie, that's who it is, the condo king in BC, as well as Brookfield. So, and you can see the Liberals, that was just one instance. They did it several times, calling points of order to interrupt when Aaron Gunn was trying to get that motion on the record. Like, I think it was 3 times. That was just one. And the Conservative, John Brassard, he's the chair, and he was just fed up. He said, I know what you're doing. People are watching. They can see it too. They really, really don't want this condo bailout investigated. However, for now, the Conservatives have control of the ethics committee. So, or at least they have the chair of the ethics committee, so things are a little bit more fair there. And I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait till those Brookfield jerks have to testify about how having their man in the PMO continues to enrich them. All right. Let's go to, what else did I put on the list here? Oh, the other day we talked about United Alberta Flags. Now, they're a third-party advertiser in the referendum campaign. So am I. Mine is called Alberta's Choice at albertas-choice.com. It used to be called Act for Alberta, but when the referendum question changed, we changed the name because it really is about giving Albertans a right to choose. If you want to donate or find out where I am at with my signs next, you can go to albertas-choice.com, not albertaschoice.com. I think that was wrong on the Elections Alberta website for a bit. It's fixed now. Alberta's Choice takes you to something else. Nice website, but it ain't me. I should tell you tonight I'm in Westlock, Alberta, from 7 to 9 at the big rec center there. Forget what it's called. You can find out the information at albertaschoice.com. Anyway, we talked the other day about United Alberta Flags, and it's headed by my friend John Tompkinson. And their whole point of their role in the referendum campaign is to give out Alberta flags. I know. Extremist, right? Anyway, I think it was at the Wetaskiwin Canada Day Parade. Now, Wetaskiwin, for those of you outside of the province, is somewhere between Edmonton and Red Deer. Rural community. Anyway, Canada Day Parade in a rural community. We all know what that looks like. So United Alberta Flags was there handing out flags to little kids. And the Forever Canada people were there doing their thing with their Canada flags, but also, according to allegations made by United Alberta Flags, and they backed up their allegations with a complaint to the RCMP. The crazy people from Forever Canada were taking the flags that United Alberta Flags had given to little kids. And you can see, they know that somehow the Forever Canada people came into possession of the United Alberta Flags. They know their flags that they're giving out, because you can see her in the parade footage holding one, and she's sort of holding it in so you can't see it. It's sort of behind her Canada flag. Well, they were able to identify the person who stole it. And again, if you are a regular viewer of the show, and if you're a regular viewer of my Rebel News Plus premium paywall show, I talk about this all the time. Conservatives get involved in municipal politics. It's not just about picking up the garbage and fixing the potholes. You can't let the crazy people run your cities and towns, because all of a sudden, if you're wondering how the drag queens got down at the local library, this is how. If you're wondering how the Pride sidewalk ended up in your town, it's because you let crazy people run the city or the town. And it's a lot easier to get elected in a small town. It's a lot easier to get elected to city council than it is to become, an MP in a close riding, right? If you want to fight the culture war, join the school board. Stack the school board with good social conservatives, or at least people who say that certain things should not be shown to children. We got to do that. We can't just concern ourselves with Klaus, Schwab, and the United Nations, and the World Economic Forum. We can't just concern ourselves with Mark Carney and the United States of Brookfield. We can't just concern ourselves with fighting back the NDP in whatever province that you're in. You have to get involved at the local level. And United Alberta Flags shows us why. So, as it turns out, the Forever Canada third-party advertiser representative with our TPA campaign materials, that's the lady, in another, I showed the screenshot the other day. You guys can go back and watch. In hand is Wetaskiwin City Councillor Karen Aberly, after City Councillor Wayne Nielsen denied that they did this or touched our material. The dishonesty and political interference is troublesome. So United Alberta Flags know they didn't give this lady a flag. They know that. So how does she have the flag in her hand? And she's a Wetaskiwin City Councillor. Wetaskiwin, again, conservative place. But conservatives don't run municipally. We have to start. We have to start. All the horrible things that happen to you close to home are done by these people. Get involved at the local level. You must. We must. See? She's got it in her hand right there. After denying the activity, video surfaced that showed them with our campaign flags. How did that happen? Is her name? Oh, her name is Karen. It's a little too on the nose, isn't it, guys? I think we got time for a couple more stories. This one highlighted by our friend Terry Newman, who writes over at the National Post. She's one of the good ones over there. And she is referencing a story that is in Czech News, which is, I think, Vancouver Island News. Yeah. 2 people have been charged in connection with a violent assault near Victoria's Dallas Road that left 3 people injured on a Friday night near Beacon Hill Park. We should be surprised that nobody's dead. Can you guess? Can you guess the names? I clicked through. Victoria Police say 20-year-old Hussein Sadadine and a youth whose identity cannot be released under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, have both been charged and are being held in custody following the attack near Beacon Hill Park on July 3rd. Officers responded to the area after 10 p.m. after a confrontation involving multiple people. It sounds like gang-related. 3 people suffered non-life-threatening injuries. 2 people were taken to hospital and have since been released. Saadideen, good grief, faces 1 count of aggravated assault and 2 counts of assault with a weapon, while the youth is charged with aggravated assault, 2 counts of assault with a weapon, and 1 count of carrying a concealed weapon. The charges come a day after Czech News spoke to a witness who described the attack as erupting out of nowhere during what had begun as a peaceful evening with friends near Beacon Hill Park. He displayed a knife before. Later, I feel like this should have been higher up in the story, Czech News. This is a machete attack. He just started swinging. The girl said 2 of her friends suffered serious slash wounds, 1 requiring surgery. The witness said members of her group chased the suspect towards mile 0, where 1 of her friends tackled him before police arrived. So maybe this isn't gang related. This is just your run-of-the-mill machete attack that's, of course, becoming more prevalent here in Canada. Machete wielders in parks, as Terry Newman pointed out. And I noticed, I saw Tristan Hopper, who's also he's a national postie, he mentioned, he sort of bemused himself with a statement on X where he talked about the Rena Verk killing. I don't know if you guys know the Rena Verk killing. Man, that must be almost 20 years ago. Rena Verk was a girl in British Columbia. I forget if it was on the island or in the greater Vancouver area. And she was assaulted by a gang of kids, like Lord of the Flies style, and left to die in a stream. It was more of a ditch, really. And it was just horrible. And I remember it shocked the nation. Like, it couldn't believe, like, Canadian kids, what are you, like, it was just so shocking. Now it's like an everyday thing where there's just a swarming, beating, gang violence, machetes, human trafficking rings, groups of men from the Indian subcontinent driving around in minivans trying to lure young girls into the vehicle, sex trafficking rings. I think in Lethbridge there was just one. Guess what all the names were? Okay. This is what Canada was 20 years ago. It feels like a dream. Like, I remember being shocked at the Rena Verk killing and thinking, man, those kids are animals. But now it's every single day. Just a machete attack in a park. No big deal. It's constant. And it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better with the Liberals in charge. Do I have time for one more story? Let's do something good before we go. From our friends over at Just Bins. Just Bins, you guys may know them. They're the Saskatchewan-based garbage company. And it's true. They're an actual garbage company, for those of you who don't know. But their drivers are out on the street all the time. And so they see things happening in Saskatchewan. And then people started sending them things that they had seen happening, because Just Bins isn't technically a news company. It's a garbage company, which means that they can post things on Meta, so Facebook, Instagram, that the rest of us can't. And it can be seen. Whereas if I or Rebel News posted something to Facebook, you wouldn't see it, thanks to the Liberal shakedown of Meta that Meta refused to pay. And I don't blame Meta for that. Just Bins, they do news along with garbage. So, and it makes a lot of people angry, because they were instrumental in helping break the story where kids were exposed to that drag theater performance that Lise covered at the Globe Theater, with claiming that they were being taken there under the guise of Indigenous reconciliation. Then they were exposed to a sexually erotic drag show. No big deal. Just our new Canada. So Just Bins does a bit of the news, and I wanted to close out on a good news story. Shout out to the bystanders. This is from our friends at Just Bins, who sprang into action after a vehicle crashed into a slough north of Craven on Highway 20.
There are people trying to help her. The occupant of the vehicle has been pulled out by bystanders here, as well as a dog, continuing to investigate.
You're responding to a single vehicle.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying. So, just to end the show on a more positive note, then, hey, just in case you're having a picnic with your kids in a public park, beware of the machete wielders. There are so good people in this country, in our small towns and even our big cities, willing to jump into action and risk themselves to help people and their dogs. So good job. Bystanders near Craven on Highway 20. We see you. We recognize you. Thank you very much. Hey, do we have any chats? No? Okay, well, I did it without chats. Oh, yes. Do you know what? We got an email. Efron flagged it to me, and I thought Olivia reminds me to read it because I thought, it's a good thing. This is from Deanna. I'm not going to say her last name. She didn't send it to us with the intent for me to read it on air. So I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to show you what her last name or what she said. But she says, "Good morning. Thanks for covering the important topics. Will you be covering the flooding situation in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and the other provinces?" Boy, I've talked about the flooding in Alberta. It seemed like every day I was out just looking at flooding for like a week straight. And I know it's similar in places across the prairies. She says, "Everyone here needs to work together. My community comes from different backgrounds, and I need them to help, especially with the flooding situation. My hope is the prepper community, my hope is the preps communities made. Oh, my hope is that the preparations that communities made are sustainable, as I am on a low income. Paid opportunities are few, and everyone's calling for volunteers. We can't afford to pay anyone. The economy, weather, and flooding are putting people in debt, which leads to increasing hunger, homelessness, and crime. Please pray for a miracle, as I can't help them. May God help us. Thank you for your excellent coverage. God bless you, Deanna." So if you are in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, be aware. Your fellow citizens in your communities may need some help, and let's check on them. We don't have to wait for the government to help our friends and neighbors. We help each other. That's what we do on the prairies. And if you have the opportunity to volunteer your time or donate to the food bank, now would be a good time, especially in these communities that are hard hit by flooding in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Okay, and and fire season's upon us too, once again. So flooding and fires. It's almost like we're being smited from above some days. Okay, I wanted to leave on a happy note, but maybe the happy note is that people will get some help because I read that letter. Okay, everybody, that's the show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with me as I hosted the show alone as Lise struggles with internet connections while she's off gallivanting with her children, but good for her. Gallivanting with your kids is the most important thing that you can do because pretty soon they'll be too big to want to gallivant with you and busy with their own lives. So gallivant while you can. I'll see everybody tomorrow. We've got the Buffalo panel. Hopefully Lise will have her internet connection resolved. If not, it'll be me and some Buffalo panelists. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who interacts with our work. And as we frequently say on the show here, if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all.
Say, folks, I have an announcement to make. For years now, Rebel News has been taking supporters out to sea on our annual cruise. I am officially joining the News Cruise, November 28th to December 5th, 2026. Here's the big picture. This year, Rebel News is teaming up with our friends at Juno News for the very first time, making the News Cruise a true joint venture between two of Canada's most watched independent newsrooms. And the lineup sailing with me, you ask? Well, the big boss man Ezra Levant, he'll be there, of course, the man who has never once in his life been at a loss for words, which should make for excellent dinner conversation, or at least a very long conversation. Cian Bexley will be joining us too.
Younger than me, of course, better hair than me, and knowingly good at his job, you'll want to sit across from Kean at dinner. And John Carpay, the brilliant constitutional lawyer from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, he will also be on board, which means if the captain tries to infringe on anyone's rights, we've got legal counsel on the Lido deck. We board Holland America Line's gorgeous MS Eurodam in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on Saturday, November 28th, and we don't come back until Saturday, December 5th, 7 full nights in the Eastern Caribbean. And there will be private receptions and candid, off-the-record conversations, the kind you will never see on any screen. And each evening at dinner, we will be rotating seats. So over the course of the week, you will sit across the table from all of us, not watching from a distance, not through a camera, across the table. Cabins are limited, and I cannot stress this enough. Every single cruise Rebel News has ever run has sold out. This year, with Juno News joining forces, demand is going to be even higher. So if you're on the fence, get off that fence and get on the boat. Visit thenewscruise.com to explore cabins and pricing. Please come join us. You just can't lose when you do the cruise.